so then let's jump over here to collections. So I mentioned the library is like content meant for general use. The whole team can see it. It's recommended for anyone searching from Revit. You can think of collections as alternative libraries that have more specific uses for your projects and team. So this could be content that is only meant for particular projects or clients, or content that you only want to be accessed by certain team members, content that you need to share externally, or simply secondary libraries that you don't really want to have recommended all the time, but sometimes people need access to them. For any of those kinds of situations, you can use a collection. So you can have as many team collections as you want. You can see here we have 19 with over 1,600 families in them. And each of these collections is like its own mini library that can be managed however you need to for that particular type of content. So basically everything I'm going to show here, you have to be an admin or content manager to do, so just keep that in mind. So if you want to create a new team collection, you just click this button, give it a name, optional description, click create, and that will create the collection. From there, you add content to the collection. So you can do that either here online using the add content button. That will show you your available sources of content, and you can add anything from those existing sources. Just keep in mind that will create a new copy of the content within this collection where you can do with it what you want. You can also upload content to your collections from Revit using the add-in. You have add to collection, gives you different options for how you add content. You have those same options also for adding to your library. Once you've created the collection, added content to it, then there are a few different things you can do with it. The first thing you can do is assign it to projects. So I can click here and it will show me the list of projects I'm tracking in my Kinship account, and I can select as many of these as I would like and click assign. You can search that list as well, and it will tell me it's been assigned to 3 projects. I can always check which projects are using the collection. I click view assigned projects. So here I can see 13 projects are using this collection. And basically what that means when you assign a collection to a project is that anyone working on the project, so anyone working on the 5 models in this hospital project, when they search for content like the content in this collection, the content in here is going to be the top recommended content in their search results. And it's going to be highlighted with that blue cube icon telling them that this content is already part of your project. So you may remember I said that icon could refer to content in the model, in another model part of the project, or content that's been assigned to the project. So content that's been assigned to the project, that refers to any collections that you've assigned to that project. So this is a way to target project-specific content just to the projects that need to use it without having it, muddy the waters for users working on other projects. So it could be, you have a client library you need to use for their projects, or content that you need to kind of modify to adapt to certain standards that are particular to a project or certain types of projects. You can put that into a collection, assign it to the projects that need to use it without having to put it in your library, and be sure it's going to be, front and center for the people working on that project without getting in the way of other users working on other projects. So that's the first thing you can do with collections, is assign them to projects. Another thing you can do with collections is make them private. So here in collection info, you can see we have a privacy toggle here. This one is actually already set to be private. And what that means is that the collection will only be visible to administrators and to users that are using the collection on a project, or that you've shared the collection with actively, so that you've chosen to invite to the collection. So this is a way you have of having content with restricted visibility among the team. So some customers use this for content development rather than just doing everything in pending approval in the library. They may make a private collection for new lighting library and then invite the administrators and other users who are good at creating content to work on some new lighting content in that private collection. The rest of the team can't see it. Then when they're ready to share it, when it's done, they can either move that content to the library or make the collection visible. Also, if you have situations like working on government projects, sometimes you know, government will provide some library of their own they want you to use. They're really, you know, insistent that that content not go elsewhere. You can put it into a private collection, assign that content to the projects that need to use it, and be sure nobody else is going to accidentally, you know, come across it from the team. So that's a way of just restricting visibility to administrators and people that you invite to use the collection. The third thing you can do with collections is share them. So if I click the share button here, that will bring up the share dialog. And you can share collections internally or externally. Internally, you might want to share it for the reasons I just mentioned. You have a private collection that you only want certain users to access. You can invite them if they aren't administrators to access the collection. You can also share internally to give regular team members admin rights just within a collection. So here I've invited 2 regular users on my team to edit this collection. I've given them edit rights. So they aren't administrators, they aren't content managers, they generally can't edit content in collections, but I've given them edit rights just within this collection. So they basically become admins just within this collection, maybe because they're like power users who are good at making families and I want them to help me with it. You can also share collections externally just with any email address. So, you know, I can put in my Gmail address and type a message, you know, check out this content for our joint venture and share it. And that will send an email to that address with a link to access this collection. If the recipient has kinship, they'll be able to see the collection in their own account, just like we're seeing it here. And I can choose whether they have edit rights, in which case we can basically live collaborate on this collection together, or just view rights, in which case they can see and use the content, but they can't change anything. If the recipient doesn't have kinship, then they can only have view rights. I click share. They get the same kind of email with the link, but when they click the link, it will just take them to a web page that looks like this, but with just the options to view and download the content. So works very similarly to if you've ever shared files using Dropbox with somebody. You just send them an email with a link and they click the link. It takes them to a web page where they can see and download those files. Same thing with kinship collection sharing with external emails who don't have kinship. They can see the content you've shared, download it, and then anytime you like update or add, remove content, that will immediately reflect for whoever you've shared it with. So this is a really streamlined way of sharing content within your content management system. So rather than having to like send email attachments or set up a SharePoint or something, remember, you know, which version you sent the person. Did you send them the latest content that they need? You just manage it all in the collection, and whatever is the latest and greatest, that's what they'll have access to. And then whenever you're done, you can just come back to the share dialog and remove them, and they'll immediately lose access to the content. So that's collection sharing. Again, the other thing people use collections for is just kind of secondary libraries. So like if I come in here to see all 19 collections, we have one called legacy content here. And this is a situation that often comes up for customers where they have some older content that they want to kind of slowly update and triage for putting into their library. So they don't want to just dump it all into the library straight away. They also don't want to have to manage it outside of their content management system, so they can put it into a collection. They don't have to make it private, don't have to share it or assign it. It's just in a collection, which means it's visible to the team. They can search for it and find it. It just won't be recommended like content in the library, won't be highlighted like content that's part of the project. And then over time, as they review and update content, they can move it to the library so that it becomes recommended. And they can also, for example, see all of the same data about project usage. So maybe content that isn't being used at all in that older content, they might just decide to delete it, do away with it, because apparently people don't need it. So overall, collections are just very flexible containers that have that you can use for content that has more particular use cases than your general library. As far as managing the content within the collection, it's basically like the library. So you see all the same details. If you go into a family, you see all the same additional information on where it's being used and comments, identity data, all of that. You have the same view, sorting, filtering, and search options here. So it's really just about how you want the content to be used that would determine whether you put it into your library or into a team collection.